Hello everyone and welcome. It's Shanna. I'm so glad you're here today. Now today we're making a really fun card and I'm going to use a variety of products. I have got the wild cone flowers from Simon Hurley and we're going to use it. And then I've also got the leaf and bloom die set from Spellbinders. And I'm also bringing in the Stargazers florals from Spellbinders as well. And I'm going to create a card. Now, I had seen Laura Basson do a video with a bunch of die cut pieces that she had put together for some new release, and she just paired all of these various florals together. And none of them really, they weren't like coordinating or anything like that. And I thought, I've got some florals that I can bring in for this and do something similar. I love when I can see a new release on somebody's channel and I immediately envision product that I already have that I could remix and kind of make something similar. So that's what I did. I thought I've got some die sets that are in my stash that I can pull out and I can put this card together. So that's what we're going to do. So I've got a variety of different pieces of scrap cardstock from Spellbinders. And I am just going to try and use these on this card and just create, a similar looking card to what Laura did on her video. And I will tell you, this is like the 11th hour. I had all 5 of my grandkids today and I was worn out. I was able to do parts of the video throughout the day when I got small little breaks. And then when it came time to the voiceover, I was just like, I'm done. I'm not going to get it done. And because it just was a long day and I was able to get a little break and the kids were watching a movie this evening. I've got the older boys overnight and they were watching a movie and I was just kind of dozing off. And then I got up and had some tea and I thought, I'm going to be able to get this done. So I've got the boys out there in the other room with Pap, and I mean, they're being really loud. I don't know if you can hear them or not. I've got the door closed, but they're just having a good old time. And I told them, I said, let me get this voiceover finished, and then we'll go on a golf cart ride. And so they're looking forward to that. I had the little boys this morning, and then the big boys came a little bit later, and then Harper came, and I had all 5 of them. And we were just boob-bopping around town on the golf cart. Harper had her scooter and was just basically following all the boys on the golf cart. And we ran around town and did all of our things. And then they decided to go swimming at their pool, and we did that. Then we came back and got something to eat and then sat down to watch a movie, and that's when I was just dozing off. So I'm just going to die cut all these pieces out. We're going to get to assembling, and we're just going to do a fun, super simple birthday card using all of these floral elements. So I'll just keep continuing to get all of the parts together, and then we'll be able to come back in and just assemble a card. We're just going to do one card on today's video. That's all I've got. And Pat just texted me and said, hey, do you want us to wait on you or you want us to go ahead and go on the golf cart ride? And I said, just go ahead and go. So I've got a moment of time here and hopefully I can get this finished. So I'm just die cutting all of these little pieces out. I've got the 3 different floral sets and I've got some cardstock from Spellbinders and I've got mostly scraps. This one I had to use this is saffron, I think. I had to use a big panel of it, and I'm just going to die cut my flowers out and get all my bits and pieces together. And then we're going to do some ink blending to try and add some dimension to them, and I think that'll make them look a little bit more interesting. And we're just going to get all of our bits and pieces together, and then we'll get to doing some blending and then assembling of some cards. So summer's just flying by so fast. We've had so much fun just going around town and just seeing all the different things that have been going on, but it is just flying past. The boys, I just realized that actually Westy will be back to school middle of next week. Gunnar won't go until the following week, but it's going to slow down considerably for me when the boys get back to school. But we have had just a blast this summer. Westy has learned how to pedal his bike like overnight. And we had a small bike for him that was just really, he's very tall for a 5-year-old. And his mom had another bike at home and she brought it over and he took to the great big bike just fine. And we've been down at the park and he has just been riding that bike all over the place, just having a blast. And his brother uses a balance bike and rides it pretty fast as well, and they just have a lot of fun together. But it is coming to an end. They're going back to school quickly, and so things are going to slow down a little bit for me, and I'll be able to have a little bit more free time. But I will be taking them to school in the morning, but I won't have them throughout the day like I have had now. So it's going to slow down a little bit. I'll have a little bit more free time and a little bit more rest. I'll still have to get up at the crack of dawn to take them to school, but I'm usually an early riser anyway. But so I'm just getting the extra bits and pieces that I didn't get die cut out, which are the Black-Eyed Susan centers and the decorative elements. I'm going to bring in my waffle flower sticky mat, and we're going to get to blending on these and just adding some dimension here. I'm going to bring in an orange here, and this is not going to be dark enough. You can barely see it. And so I'll bring in a darker orange, and I'm not even going to name the dyes or the inks because I just can't even remember what they are. And I'll just lay some color down. Now this is a little bit darker orange. And then I'm going to bring in, I think I bring in some vintage photo just because it wasn't quite dark enough. I'm trying to layer up, and I thought I had the wrong piece, but then I'll realize that I did have the right pieces. I just was not laying them together right. So I'll bring in some darker ink and just lay some ink down on these, and we'll add some more dimension to it. We're going to have these brown centers, so it'll look nice to have a little bit of brown peeking behind that. And then I'm going to bring the orange back in, and we'll have a little bit of brown, then orange, then the saffron there. And then I've got some, this is dahlia, I think, and I'm just going to lay some lumberjack plaid red on there and just darken them up. I think I bring some of that vintage photo in to add a little bit more depth to it. And I'm going to use it on my other flower as well and just try to add some dimension to it. I'm bringing the brown back into the stargazers and just darken them up a little bit. Now we're going to get to assembling our flowers. And I'm going to use some foam squares and just kind of pop up in between each layer just to add some dimension. Now I have got the Distressed Oxide ink on there, and it is wet. And so my foam squares are not wanting to stick. So I'm going to actually wind up laying it on the back of the top that doesn't have ink on it. And then I'll bring some glue in, and I'll put some glue down on there, and then we'll get them stuck together. So I'm going to get them lined up, try to get them lined up how they go. And we've got some dimension there. And then I'll bring some more foam squares in and put the center of the flower on there. And then this one also has a decorative element that goes on the edge, and I'll bring it in and glue it up and lay it down on there. And it just adds some extra dimension to it. And we'll just get this laid down on there. And I'm just going to do all the florals, and then we'll add them to the stems later. And again, I'm just layering them up. This is the Stargazer. It is a 3-layer piece. And so I'm going to get the second layer on there, and then we'll put some foam on there, and we'll get the third layer laid down, and then we'll add a little centerpiece to it. And so it's really a 4-piece floral die. This is the centerpiece. I'm going to put a little glue there in the center and lay it down. And then we'll pop up that last piece because it's really going to go over it. So that it's kind of peeking out underneath that last layer. And I'm going to cut some foam down because it's a pretty narrow strip. And then we'll bring it in and get it laid down on there. And we'll just layer that up. Trying to get it in the right direction, get it positioned on there. I'm trying to tuck that foam up in there because I saw just a little bit peeking down, and we'll give it a press. And then we've got our little leaf and bloom here, and we're just going to put the center in it and get it ready to go. And then we're going to ink up our stems and our leaves because I inked everything else up, and I just felt like I needed to ink them up. So we'll bring back in our sticky mat, and we'll get all of our little bits and pieces laid down on here. And I have probably more elements than what I'm going to use, but I'm going to get them all inked up, and then I'll have options to work with. And I've got 3 stems. I've got 2 leafy elements, and then I've got some leaves that go with it. I'm going to bring that up more into the center of the screen because my video yesterday, I was kind of at the bottom of the screen, and I really felt bad about it. So I'm trying to make sure I'm paying attention to what I'm doing on today's video. And I zoomed out a little bit more so you could see a little bit more of what I'm doing. And I'm just going to lay some ink down on there. And I mean, I'm doing this quickly because I've just got just little moments of time that I can work on today. And so I'm just trying to get, just sections of this video done. And then we'll just kind of parcel them together and come up with a video. This is Mowed Lawn. I like to use it on my Peridot cardstock. It just kind of matches nicely with it because it's kind of a yellow-green. And we'll just add some dimension to all of these. And then we've got all of our little leafy elements blended here, and we're going to get them off the sticky mat, and then we'll come back in and we'll start working with our elements. So I cleaned off my desk because I had some ink on there, and we're just going to start working with our stems and getting our flowers, our florals attached to our stems. And so I'm trying to look and see which stem goes with which flower and get them laid down on there. So I've got the Stargazer, and then I've got the Stargazer actually has some layered pieces for their leaves so that you can do them in a lighter and a darker color. And the stems are labeled A, B, and C, and then the leaves are labeled A, B, and C so that you can get the right layers on there. And so I'm just going to lay these layers on there. You don't necessarily need them, but I thought, you know what? The die had them. I'm going to represent them on the video, and we'll just layer them up and get them laid on there. So we've got some extra dimension on these leaves. I did the ink blending, so I really didn't need that, but I thought, well, I die cut them out. Let's go ahead and get them on there. So we've got our Stargazer. Next, we are going to put our, what I'm calling the Black-Eyed Susan. This is the wild coneflower. But I think if you do it like in pink, it could be a coneflower. If you do it in yellow, it can be a Black-Eyed Susan. We've got some leaves to go with it. And then we've got our little leaf and bloom here that is just a small little bloom. And I'm going to get it assembled. Now, first I put the glue on the stem, and then I realized that the stem needs to go on the top of the flower. So I added some glue to the top of the flower, and then I added the stem to it because it has like a little piece that, shows on the underneath of the flower. And then I'm just going to kind of look at them and see, I think this is how I'm going to cluster them. I've got a couple leafy elements. Now we're going to bring in the card base, and we're going to get to assembling. So what I decided to do was use an arch die and create a shaped card. So we've got an arch. This is the Perfect Touch Arches, and I brought in some, this is kind of a gold matte cardstock. This is something that my friend Daria had brought to me, and it's beautiful gold textured paper. And I'm going to use it for my card. I'm going to bring in another layer for the inside, and I'm going to put white on it so we'll have an area to write on. But we're going to have an arch for the inside of our card, and then we've got the gold on the outside. So I'm just getting all of my elements put together here. And we're going to lay this on the inside of the card if I can get it lined up how I want it. And this is really a very pretty cardstock. And so I'll open it up. I'm going to layer this up on the inside. We've got a little bit of white area where we can write our message. And we'll just get everything pressed down. And we've got our shaped card. Now I did take and nested a couple of those dies together, and I created an arch. And I've got foam tape on the back so that we have some great dimension. I'm adding some glue so that I can get it positioned straight. It'll give me some wiggle room, and we'll get it laid down on there. And then we're just going to tuck these florals in there. And it's much like the video I saw from Laura Basson. I'm going to, I'm kind of recreating it with the stuff that I have in my stash. And I'm going to need to trim my stems down so that I can tuck them in. I'm going to put some foam on the back of them, and I kind of want my stems or my florals to hang out over that arch and not just be contained within the arch. I just kind of want it to kind of pop out of that arch and just show through there. And then we're just going to add the other elements, and I'll trim them down as well. And I think this is fun. Usually I'll use a die set and, put this particular, the wild coneflowers had 3 dies that go with it, 3 florals. And I normally would just put the 3 together and just create a card with that. But Laura inspired me to grab these 3 different sets and to use all the different types of flowers and to assemble them together and just create, this is more like what our flower garden looks like because we've got a variety of flowers in them. And so I thought, as I was doing that, I was thinking about my flower garden, and I'm not limited to just one type of flower, so why should my card be limited to that as well? So I'm bringing in my leaves, and I'm going to get them tucked in and laid down before I get too carried away here and I don't have room to put them down. So we'll just tuck them in. I'm going to slide this one kind of underneath the other one and fill in. And then we'll bring our stargazer in. I'm going to need to trim down the stem on it as well and just tuck it. And again, I'm using foam squares to pop up the floral and then putting a little bit of glue on the stem, and then we'll just get them tucked in. And I've got a couple of leafy elements down there as well, and I'm going to add one of them. I kind of fiddle around with both of them, and then I decide that I just want to go with one. And so I'll move this one around a little bit. I kind of like it here, and then I'm thinking about the other one, and I'll just decide that I'm just going to use one. Still trying to play around and see what I like. I've got two different colors there. But ultimately, I'll just lay the one down, and I'll decide to position it on my left side so that I have room for my sentiment on the right side. So we're just going to get it put down here. And so I'll just glue it up and get it laid down, and then I will be able to have kind of an open space there on the lower right-hand side for my sentiment. And so for that, I'm going to bring in Simon Hurley's, I think these are called big and bold sentiments. I don't think they're really that big. They're actually kind of fine. The shadow's kind of big, but the sentiment is very fine. And I'm going to use Happy Birthday. I've got some foam on here. I'm adding a little bit of glue, and I'm going to get it laid down on here. This is going to be a beautiful birthday card. And so we'll pull the release paper off of the birthday, and we'll get some glue laid down on it, and we'll get it added. I had to snip it off. I got a little bit too much foam on there, and I don't want it to show through the back side of the sentiment. And so we'll get this laid down on there. We're going to have a beautiful birthday card, and I've got an extra card to add to my birthday stash. Seems like I never have enough birthday cards. And I love that gold pattern paper that's behind there and just the variety of flowers. I think it looks really pretty. Love how I did the inside. So I've taken a couple pictures for you so you can check them out a little bit close up and see them. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, I've got some more content here that you can check out. Thanks for watching.